Hi. Hi. How are you? Good. How are you? Good. Where are you from? I'm with the house. Okay. Rob.
Can I have everybody's attention, please? Can we have all the speakers up here to my left or to your right if you're down there?
I looked at your shirt. Wait, you should probably know that that's a wonderful shirt.
Stand here or here?
Hi, everybody. Can I have everybody's attention, please? I want to thank everybody for coming today. It's a beautiful day. We were kind of worried about the weather, but we don't have to worry about that.
Weather's great. Weather's great.
I just want to ask a question. Why are we all gathered here today?
Trans right.
My answer to that is we should not have to be gathered here today.
That's right.
We should not have to be here. And we're going to change it. The Pennsylvania Coalition for Trans Youth is going to change it. Our allies are going to change it. Our allies is everybody here in support. Our allies are our biggest tool. We're in a war right now. We want to build an army. We want to win this war, and we will win this war. I just want to mention on behalf of the newly created Pennsylvania Coalition of Trans Youth and TAPE, Transgender Advocates Knowledgeable, Empowering, we are hosting a rally here today to support our defenseless transgender youth and their families of hate, bigotry, rhetoric, discrimination brought on by our legislators, hate groups, etc. During the COVID-19 pandemic that has already taken the lives of 27,675 Pennsylvanians.
Too many.
And caused over 1.1 million job losses in PA, we supporters of equality want to show up and say, don't target trans rights.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it again.
Say
Don't
it again.
target trans rights.
Say it again. Say it as many times as you have.
You guys say it. Let me hear you.
Say it.
Target trans rights!
Say it.
Don't target trans rights!
Say it.
Don't target trans rights!
Don't target trans rights.
Don't target trans rights!
Thank you.
All right.
Do your job and focus on the families in need. This is what we need our legislators to do. Again, today gathered in solidarity, we all are showing our support for trans and non-binary people, our allies, and those who love us, and tell legislators, again, do your job. What are we going to tell them?
Do your job!
Again?
Do your job!
Do your job and back off targeting vulnerable kids in schools. Today we are sending a message loud and clear. Transgender youth are welcome in Pennsylvania. Say with me, trans rights are human rights.
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 Trans rights are what?
Human rights. Human rights.
Trans rights, human rights.
I can't hear you.
Trans rights are human rights. Trans rights are human rights.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We're going to move on to the speakers for today. Our first speaker is State Representative Brian Sims. And State Representative Brian Sims is a distinguished policy and civil rights advocate from the Center City, Philadelphia. He is dedicated in making Philadelphia safer, strengthening and protecting public education, preserving services for seniors, and also vulnerable Pennsylvanians, making affordable health care more available, expanding civil rights for all Pennsylvanians, preserving our environment while investing in alternative energy, creating jobs, and cleaning up Harrisburg. As a state legislator, he is honored to represent the neighborhoods of Pennsylvania, 182nd District. He is the first out LGBTQ+ member of the Pennsylvania General Assembly. Please welcome the one and only Brian Sims.
Thank you, Janelle. And thank you, everybody, for being here. They're always complicated rallies. I hate that we're all here. And I'm proud that everybody is here. I'm grateful that you're all here. I'm glad that the media is paying attention to what's being said here today. And I'm grateful for the speakers that are going to follow bodies. Seems pretty incredible. But we've been doing this now for many of us for most of our lives. This is all of Pennsylvania when the General Assembly is in session. It is not reflective of the party registration or the views of Pennsylvanians. There are hundreds of thousands of more registered Democrats in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania than Republicans. And I don't want to get into whether or not that inherently means that they support LGBTQ rights or inherently don't. But the choice between the parties is really clear. My Republican colleagues in the House of Representatives find it in them to continually parrot the worst of the worst attacks on trans people that you see anywhere in the United States. If a wicked legislator can cook up a way of hurting a trans person, my colleagues will parrot that legislation, knowing, by the way, that we have a governor that would veto any anti-trans legislation. They do it to hurt people, and they do it for the attention it gives them. Something's been really clear to me for the longest time as an LGBTQ+ activist. It's the sort of nefarious nature of our opponents. Our opponents know exactly how and when and where to attack us to be effective. Whether it was trans people in bathrooms or trans kids in locker rooms or on the sports field, they know to attack the strongest among us. That's the message I want to leave you all with. If you're wondering why it is that my colleagues find it in themselves to continually attack trans people, it's because when the book of LGBTQ civil rights is written, the chapters on the amazing trans leaders and advocates and champions of equality will take up most of it. Trans people in this movement are the strongest among us, in part because they have been the most attacked among us. LGBTQ rights is a complicated thing in America. We can never have full LGBTQ equality until there is racial and ethnic equality, until the people who are differently abled are treated the same way that people who are able-bodied. But make no mistake about it, the people of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania support LGBTQ people, they support LGBTQ equality, and until the people in the building behind us do as well, we will show up here every single year and demand full equality. Thank you all very, very much.
Brian, can you do me a favor and tell our allies what they need to do?
It's an easy one. My colleagues are scared of experts. They're scared of experts. The number one job criteria for the 253 people that occupy the building behind me as elected officials was former small business owner. That's it. If you're wondering what makes these people so special at deciding somebody else's civil rights, the number one occupation among them all was former small business owner. You too can fail a small business and become a legislator, right? If they were good at those jobs, they'd be medium-sized business owners. Instead, they're elected officials. And they're elected officials that are scared of experts. They're scared of women. They're scared of moms. They're scared of kids. They're scared of doctors. They're scared of science. And they're scared of their own lack of personal responsibility. What all of you can do is what you're doing right now, is show up. It's we, all of us in our lives, know that coming out to the people around us who may not have yet supported equality had a big role in getting them to support equality. Well, that's different for a lot of these opponents here. They know queer people, and yet they still want to deny us our rights. But when we show up, when you all sit in their offices, when you talk about your lives in the first person, it is undeniable. The answer to inequality in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is right here. It is literally what you are doing right now, and I'm grateful for it. So thank you all.
Thank you so much, Brian. Our next speaker, believe it or not, his name is Brian also. We have Brian Allen. Brian is a licensed psychologist and associate professor of pediatrics at Penn State College of Medicine, where he founded and directs the Child Abuse Treatment Program of Penn State's Children's Hospital. He recently launched a campaign to represent Pennsylvania's 10th congressional district against Scott Perry. He is running on a platform of returning truth, integrity, and respect to our government. Brian?
Thank you. And I'll just say I'm one of those people that they don't like in there. I'm a psychologist and an NIH-funded researcher. They don't like me. Ah, well. Thank you. I like you too. I appreciate that. Well, it is an honor and a privilege for me to be here today. And when Janelle asked me to speak, I was trying to think what I would say, because I'm not a member of the LGBTQ plus community. And then I did some reflection, and it occurred to me I know exactly what to say. I want to give you an experience. I want to give you personal experience that would tell you why I'm so honored and privileged to be here today. I'm from a small little farm town that nobody's ever heard of before. You know, where nothing ever changes. Everybody knows everybody's business. And I can pretty much guarantee you I never met an openly trans individual in my entire upbringing. I can actually remember the first time I did have a real conversation with someone who was openly transgender. I was 28 years old. And like I think most of us do, I think it's human nature. When you come into an experience that you don't understand, you rely on your assumptions to make sense of that experience. I think that's true for all of us. And coming from where I came from and the experiences that I had, my assumption was, well, God created you a certain way. And if God is unerring and infallible, then you are basically saying that God is wrong and that you are right. Who are you to do that? Now, this individual was a 15-year-old patient. And I sat with her and I did my job. And I listened to her talk about her struggles, depression, anxiety, stress, the bullying she experienced at school, feeling like her parents didn't understand her and didn't support her. And it kind of made me do a little bit of a challenging of my own assumptions, because how can this be the case? And I listened to her explain why she was transgender. It wasn't a deliberate process that she sat and thought about and decided, you know, how, it was something that she said, in her words, I've just always known. And I thought that was fascinating. And as I've worked with transgender teens since then and talked with adults as well, I kind of hear the same thing over and over. And many, many years ago, I had to put those two things together in my mind, that if someone says this is how I just know I am, this is who I am, I've always known that. How do I reconcile that with the idea that God made you in a particular type of body? And then it dawned on me. It was kind of a, an epiphany of sorts. Maybe the reason that God created this individual in a particular body with a different identity is because God intended for our world to include transgender individuals. That's the only way you can reconcile those two things. And if you view it that way, then discrimination and hatred and physical aggression and all those things against transgender individuals are against the world that God has created. Now, I owe a lot to that 15-year-old patient because she forced me to challenge my assumptions. And if she hadn't done that, I wouldn't have come to that conclusion, and I wouldn't be here today. That 15-year-old girl, the other teenagers that I've worked with, the adults that I've met through the years, including Janelle, it's not easy to be transgender. I know that. I understand that. I know the statistics about transgender youth and the percentage that contemplate suicide. I've sat with them and listened to their struggles. I don't understand, and one of the thoughts that I had was, why would anyone choose that? That's something else I had to try and figure out, that who would choose that? Nobody that I know, right? It's not easy. It's not easy. But it's important because it changes people's ideas and assumptions. Right? As you go through life and you meet people and you confront the discrimination and the hatred and the physical aggression, I want you to remember that there are people who stand with you, people who are here, people across the country and around the world that you will never see or never know. I stand with you. When the day comes that we don't have to have these rallies anymore, like Representative Sims talked about, you will know that that tomorrow came because you were here today. It's not easy. It takes courage, it takes perseverance, and it takes faith in knowing that that tomorrow will come. That's why I'm so proud to be here today, why I feel privileged and honored to be in the presence of courageous and resilient people. Thank you for allowing me to come speak today, and God bless you.
Thank you, Brian. Well said. Our next speaker was supposed to be the press secretary for Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman, but she was called away on another event. So they sent me a statement that John Fetterman wanted us to read. From the press secretary and of Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman himself, the Lieutenant Governor sends his regrets that he cannot be here in person, that he is committed to pushing for the rights of all trans people and won't stop until all people have equal protection under the law. This is our Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman. He sent those are the words he sent us. Thank you. Our next speaker is Beth McKinley. After 15 years as a donor advisor for a variety of regional, national, and international nonprofit organizations, Beth McKinley transitioned her experience in charitable gift planning to the financial services industry. As a co-founder of Allied Financial Group and a financial advisor at Thrivent, Beth is building a practice that is focused on serving those who want to intentionally incorporate giving, helping women feel confident in their financial future, and prioritizing for the needs of the LGBTQ+ community and allies. Professionally, Beth is an active member of Women Insurance and Financial Services, where she helped found the Central Pennsylvania chapter and is currently serving as the chapter secretary. She is also a member of the Keystone Business Alliance, the LGBTQ+ Chamber of Commerce in Central Pennsylvania. She is the co-chair for the Lower Susquehanna Synod LGBTQA+ Affirming Task Force. First chair of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging for the Carlisle branch of the AAUW, and co-chair for Communications Newsletter for Thrivent's Pride Network Business. Beth continues to support local fundraising efforts as an active volunteer on the development committees for Project Share, Amos Village, and the YWCA of Carlisle, Cumberland County. Let's give Beth a warm welcome.
You forgot to add friends on that one. Is it afternoon yet? Where am I standing between you and lunch? But we are here for a much more important reason today. As Janelle said, my name is Beth McKinley and my pronouns are she, her, hers. That is something we all need to get used to saying with nonstop, like full stop. Those are my pronouns. So if there's one thing you do today when you go home, practice in the car, practice in the mirror, practice with your friends and your family. Get used to saying your pronouns and you will become a more welcoming person. 3 years ago, I made the decision to transition my career from a donor advisor to a financial advisor because I was tired of being mad online and I wanted to do something about the marginalization of the LGBTQ+ community in my home in central Pennsylvania. A hateful act against a childhood friend who had recently moved back to the area with his husband and son motivated me to create a practice that prioritizes the needs of the LGBTQ community. It also called me to take action in an active way to dismantling my own bias and ignorance. As I stand here today, a white, cisgender, hetero woman, I know that I am bathed in privilege. Add in that I also identify as a Christian, and the ease with which I can move through the world grows exponentially. But it is through this lens that I most want to speak today. So often we only hear about God in the binary, most especially when those words of scripture are weaponized, like in Genesis from chapter 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. He separated the light from the darkness. God called the dry ground land and gathered waters he called seas. God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day and the lesser to govern the night. Male and female, he created them. Very truly, I tell you, we are not living in a binary creation. And to relegate God only in the binary is to limit the very capacity of the one many Christians claim to follow. Every day is filled with degrees of transition from one thing to another. Night does not suddenly give way to the brightness of day, like the flick of a light switch. Just in the last 2 weeks, we've seen seasons ebb and flow until finally one gives way to the next and the next and the next. Colors are blended to create new tones and hues, whether stretched across the sky or an artist's canvas. Even a wide array of fish in the water, birds in the air, reptiles and lions on the land are known to change sex and gender. And for some, this can include reproductive function. We too are not only one iteration of self. To be trans today in the contemporary faith discourse is to be silent, to hide, to reject who you truly are. And if not, you are not welcome. To our trans siblings, especially those who have been pushed aside, closed out, and removed from spaces where they can flourish, I say God is in the middle with your struggle. God is in the middle of your desire to authentically be who you are meant to be. And God is in the middle, and they created everything and everyone, including you. We are knitted together by a common desire to be seen, to be heard, and to belong. As chair of the LGBTQIA Affirming Task Force of the Lower Susquehanna Synod, let me be abundantly clear. You not only belong, you are celebrated, you are cherished, and you are loved as you are today, tomorrow, and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Beth said one word in her statement. It's kind of moving to me a little bit because her word was silent. There's no way we're going to be silent. I will not be silent. No, none of us will be silent. Repeat after me. I will not be silent.
I will not be silent.
Again.
I will not be silent.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Mr. Floyd Stokes. Floyd Stokes is the Executive Director of the American Literacy Corporation, a nonprofit promoting reading to children that he founded in 2000. He is the author of over 25 children's books. He has read to children in all 50 states. Floyd honors include the James Patterson Page Turner Award and the renaming of his school library in his honor. In 2020, he founded the African American Memorial Fund, which supports families who have unarmed loved ones killed by the police. He is the founder of the Amani Festival, a multicultural festival in Carlisle. He served 6 years in the U.S. Army. He was born and raised in the Mississippi Delta, and he lives in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Please welcome Floyd.
Beth, I'm the first to be able to say good afternoon. It's an honor for me to be here, and I stand before you as a proud ally of the LGBTQ community. And I'm here to support the trans youth and their families. Every child, no matter their race, color, religion, sexuality, or gender, deserves to be treated unequally. To be treated equally. We must not judge people based on sexuality. Bigotry has no place in Pennsylvania. Hatred has no place in Pennsylvania. Discrimination has no place in Pennsylvania. Trans youth belong here in Pennsylvania. Trans youth belong here in the United States. Trans youth belong here on this third rock from the sun. Trans youth deserves every opportunity that other people do. Trans youth, as you face adversities, know that I stand with you. I ask that you take adversities of life that you will face, as we all will, and use them to propel yourself forward. As a part of the African American Memorial Fund, we have monthly essay contests. And for the month of June, we had the students, grades 3rd through 12, compete in the essay contest with the theme, Why Pride Month is Important. And the middle school winner, the one winner, we called her and said, excitingly, you've won the essay contest for the month of June. She said, don't send any prizes home to my family, to my home, because my parents are homophobia. That's sad. The good part in that is that she's still growing up in a home with mixed messages, right? She knows that what she's being taught is wrong. And we need to continue, just like that poster said, education, not discrimination. We need to continue to educate our youth on what's right. Let's not, let the negative trans youth, let the negative energy that you encounter be the combustion that drives your engine of success. Let the adversity of life be the ladder you use to climb higher than anyone could imagine. Let the rejections of life be used to weave a rope to pull you closer to happiness. In other words, turn lemons into lemonade. In other words, success is the best form of revenge. Then share your testimony with others. It's like reaching back. When you share your story of triumph with others, it's like launching a lifeboat into a turbulent sea to save them from drowning. We are doing that at the African American Memorial Fund and the American Literacy Corporation. I am holding here a draft of the book that's coming out in October, How We Found Our Pride, Letters to a Young Queer. This book includes 50 letters of people, 40 are in the community, and 10 are allies such as myself. And we wrote letters to the next generation. And I'm really, really excited about this book because it will save lives. Not only will it save lives, the proceeds from this book will go to establish 2 scholarships. Dr. Ski is one of the participants. One of the scholarships, yeah, Dr. Ski. One of the scholarships will go to support a scholarship for student LGBTQ community students to go to HAC. And then the other one will be housed at the American Literacy Corporation to support someone who wants to go to college anywhere in the United States. And I'm proud to say that Janelle also wrote a letter. Can we give her a hand, please? Thank you. And I also, we would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge my daughters who are here with me, Olivia and Madison. This is important enough that we submitted an excused absence for us to be here today. They're supposed to be in class, but this is important, more important than any lesson in class that they're teaching right now. So thank you, Janelle, for the invitation and all the organizers for doing this important work. Know that I stand ready to work alongside you to advance the cause of the trans youth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Floyd. As Floyd said, trans youth and trans people belong in Pennsylvania. Trans youth and trans people and their families are not just passing through and visiting. We live here and we belong here. So let's hear it. Trans people belong in Pennsylvania.
Trans people belong in Pennsylvania.
He also mentioned education is not discrimination. We need to hear that loud and clear, that education is not discrimination.
Education is not discrimination.
One more time, louder.
Education is not discrimination.
Thank you.
Trans athletes belong in Pennsylvania.
Yes, as one person just said, trans athletes belong in Pennsylvania.
Belong in Pennsylvania.
Let our kids play.
Let our kids play.
Again, let our kids play.
Let our kids play.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jackie Baker. Jackie Baker is from Susquehanna County here in Pennsylvania, and she is a candidate for State of Pennsylvania Senatorial District 23. Jackie was born and raised in Pennsylvania and is a former educator with a bachelor's and master's degree in education. Jackie is also an activist, advocate, and ally for the LGBTQ+ community. Please welcome Jackie.
Good afternoon. Thank you for Janelle for organizing this rally today and for allowing me to speak. Thank you all for coming out here today. I am Jackie Baker, and I am here because I believe that all Pennsylvanians deserve the right to live their lives as their authentic, true selves, and that each and every individual in our Commonwealth shall be free to live, learn, work, and love free of discrimination. As an educator, my top priority was to know each student as an individual and to create a warm and positive difference in the atmosphere in my classroom. I wanted all my students to feel nurtured, supported, and cared for. Schools and teachers can make a big difference in the lives of our kids by creating gender inclusive spaces where all kids can learn, grow, and thrive. Students will have a better chance at success if schools provide support and resources for gender identity and expression. Despite one's own personal values and beliefs, every teacher and school has the legal and moral obligation to support all students in all aspects. Too often, families of gender expansive students have experienced challenging and sometimes combative experiences with schools. And compared to the general population, gender diverse kids face drastically increased rates of bullying, assault, depression, school dropout, drug abuse, self-harm, and suicide. A 2009 report from the Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network says that nearly 90% of transgender youth surveyed had experienced verbal harassment at school because of their gender. 2/3 felt assault to the schools. These students were more likely to skip school and have significantly lower grade point averages. Schools and teachers must articulate their commitment to support trans students and their families. They must work to build trust and respect for our trans students so that they can grow, learn, develop in a healthy, safe space. Teachers and schools have a duty to support and uplift our trans kids. They must affirm a truly gender inclusive climate in schools. They must make clear that everyone deserves respect and that bullying and harassment of our trans youth will not be tolerated. That every student has the right to go to school, get an education, and to be included, to participate in activities without discrimination and without bullying or harassment. And teachers, schools, if you're facing resistance, then you need to request some professional development to educate your teachers, your staff, your administrators about gender diversity. When students and schools and caring adults collaborate, we can create a safe, positive place for all of our students, especially our trans students. And we want them to be educated. We want them to have a positive experience in school, just like all students should have, and we want them to succeed. So let's try to make Pennsylvania the most safe, accepting, and compassionate place for our trans youth. It's been an honor to be here today with these incredible leaders and advocates who are committed to making Pennsylvania a safe, inclusive place for our trans youth to be their authentic selves and where they can learn, grow, play, and thrive free of discrimination. Thank you. Thank you, Janelle.
Thank you so much, Jackie. Jackie made a lot of good points about our schools today. And I don't know really how to say this, but there's words out there right now that are trying to discourage and eliminate our trans youth in school athletics. We will not allow it. Trans kids, let them play. Can we hear it? Trans kids, let them play.
Let us live. Let us live. Let us live.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
Okay. Our next speaker is Heather McDonald. Heather McDonald is a candidate for state representative in Cumberland County, Pennsylvania, the 87th district. Heather grew up in Cumberland County. She has watched it change and expand over the years. She recognizes the need for new generation of leadership to advocate for equity and progress in central Pennsylvania. When elected, she will become the first openly LGBTQ elected official for the 87th district, the first millennial representative for the district, and an unstoppable force for progress. Woo! I can say this before Heather speaks. She is going to be unstoppable. Many people are going to support her, and she will never give up. Heather?
Thank you so much. I have a story I would like to tell all of you today, and I have struggled for a time now to figure out not how to tell it. I know exactly how to tell it. I just wasn't sure who to tell it to. And so when Janelle invited me here today, I knew that I was going to tell it to you. So I am a bisexual woman. It is the most normal thing to me in the world. I can't actually fathom being any other way. But from a very young age, I knew that I had to hide that. I knew that my family's love was dependent on me hiding my love. And that's not specific to me. That's actually a universal story that any LGBT youth can tell. And like any person in that situation, we're all waiting for the day where everything changes, where everything comes out, and you have no choice but to be your authentic self in front of the people who should love you. So for me, that day came earlier this year. And I'll put it very simply, but my family told me that myself and my beautiful, openly LGBT son were no longer welcome into our family. It's funny that Floyd said something about being adrift at sea, because for me, it felt like the idea of family was the only thing tying me to dry land. And once that was cut, I was loose. I was unmoored, and I was just out at sea by myself. It is a lonely place. It's full of grief and isolation, but it's also full of relief. I was relieved to finally have had that day happen. But a funny thing happens whenever your relief turns into understanding, because I understood that I was incredibly lucky that that day met this version of me. The version of me that's a strong 34-year-old woman, successful and solid in who I am. And then that relief shifted into a desire to have a sense of duty to people that weren't as lucky as I am.
Thank you.
Of course. So it's my job now. It's my job to make sure that I am standing in the way of anyone that comes for our vulnerable. It's every ally's job to make sure that we don't let the people in power try to take away our child's safety and well-being for political points. It is the job of every parent, aunt, uncle, teacher, neighbor, loved one to make sure that we are protecting children. That's what we're here today for. We are protecting children. So I had the good fortune of interviewing Representative Brian Sims. And when I did, I asked him if he ever felt pressure, if he ever felt that a pressure to be a representative of the LGBT community for us. And he very easily said no. He said, I don't feel any pressure because I understand that our trans brothers and sisters have it way harder than us.
Way harder.
When you hear those words, it's an invitation to match them. It's an invitation to show up. When Janelle Crossley asks you to come to an event, you show up.
You show up.
And so all we have to do as allies and everything we're doing right now today is to continue to show up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Heather. What are we going to do that Heather said?
Show up.
Absolutely.
Show up.
Our next speaker is Hajir El-Sheikh. Hajir is an activist, author, entrepreneur, business owner, and so much more. She was born and raised in Sudan, where she spent her youth protesting unfair practices and advocating for equality. Excuse me, I'm breaking up a little bit because that brought memories of her book. Her political actions brought with them great danger, and she fled the country, eventually landing in central Pennsylvania, where she overcame unsurmountable obstacles. Become a successful businesswoman, a strong role model, and a community organizer. Please welcome Hajir.
Thank you, Janelle, and thank you, everyone. I don't know how I can follow those amazing leaders and activists, but I'm thankful to be here, standing in front of you. And like Janelle said, I grew up in Sudan, and I moved here as a young adult. So basically, all my adulthood I spent it in the United States, but I would like to share a small part of my story. Sudan is a country that was ruled by dictators. I had first-hand experience fighting and protesting for human rights, and especially women's rights. As a woman growing up in Sudan, my basic rights were denied. I was tortured, detained, and beaten simply for protesting, speaking out, and for asking for a better life and treatment for all. Thank you. As someone whose rights were violated, was unheard, and made to feel as my life did not matter, I made it my mission to support anyone who faces injustice. I made it my mission to speak up, use my voice and my abilities to fight for what's right. I have been an activist and a spokesperson for the Democratic Party basically my whole life. And for the past 32 years, I tried to practice what I preach. It's a shame to stand here today protesting and talking about the same issues that I protested back then. It's a shame that we are still fighting every day for basic human rights.
It's a good fight.
It is a good fight.
Yeah.
But it's still a shame that we are still seeing so many people that we love suffer, being discriminated against, and not having the support from the government, the communities, and like Heather and Brian and so many out there not having the support of their families. I got tired of hearing people saying to me, I am an exception for immigrants. I'm an exception for refugees. I'm an exception for a Black woman. And I'm sure all of you are tired of hearing those same people telling you, we will make an exception, as in, we think that your lifestyle is wrong, but we will love you. That, my friend, is not compliment. It is a compromised version of hate. And like Dr. Martin Luther King said, a right delayed is a right denied. We cannot keep living in a world that denies basic human rights. And I definitely don't want to live in a world that is going backward. And that's what we're doing right now.
Going forward.
We are going to make it go forward by just showing up and by doing what we're supposed to do. But in order for us to correct any problem, just like what we're trying to do now, we first have to identify the problem, then remove it from its root. There is no one way for a perfect ally like myself or some of you here. There is no perfect way. There is no one way of supporting. There is no one way that I can say do it and things are going to get better or things are going to move towards the right direction. But you need to remember that you don't have to be lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or queer. You don't need to be facing with discrimination. You don't need to be tortured like I am or face any obstacle that I faced in my life to care about other people's rights. You just simply need to do it because that's the right thing to do. You don't have to have a lesbian or a LGBTQ plus person in your family to care. Just show up. And you don't have to understand someone's identity to respect. You don't have to be there in their shoes to walk their steps and to walk that mile. We need to support equal rights for everyone regardless of their race, sexual orientation, gender, or religion. Doing that, we can call out discrimination. We can fight for equality, support, and advocate for basic human rights. And this is the minimum that we can do. If we want to try to make this world a better place for all, courage is not the only thing that we can do. We need to put in the hard work. We need to speak up for the underrepresented. I used to say, be the voice for the voiceless. But then I realized that they don't need me to control their life even more by being their voice. But I can help them find their voice and use it. I can amplify that voice. I can use my privilege and my power, and trust me. Look at me. I'm a Black woman and I am an immigrant, a mass refugee. So I don't have any privilege. Like Beth said, so many of you have more privilege than I do, but I still found the one thing that I can do to be supportive and to use that. The power that I had is to speak and to come and talk about my story and to stand up and protest, do whatever it takes to make my voice heard and to make people feel they belonged anywhere, just like I heard it when I came here as a young adult over 20-some years ago. And I built my life from zero so many times, facing domestic violence, facing everything that you could imagine. Anything that can go wrong with one person happened to me at one point. But I still got up every morning and I put a smile on my face because that's the one thing that I can do. As long as I'm awake and I'm alive the next day, I still have that fight in me. And until I'm dead, I'm going to continue fighting. And I'm going to use everything that I have, even if it's just my voice, to make people understand, make people relate to others without being in their position. All I'm trying to say, we need to keep fighting. We need to keep fighting for equality until we see the change that we deserve. And if the system and this system does not benefit everyone that is supposed to serve, we need to restructure it. And that's what we were doing right now. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for speaking out. And thank you for doing everything that you can do to help and for just being human and caring about others. Thank you, Janelle.
Thank you.
Thank you, Azir. Azir said a couple things in her statement that kind of hit me. The one thing was fighting. Right now, we, the trans community, are in a war. And the only way to win a war is we got to build an army. And that's what we're doing right now. The Pennsylvania Coalition for Trans Youth is out here. We're building an army. We're going to fight. And we're going to fight until we win. And we will win. I'm going to say it again. We will win.
We will win.
The other word that I picked up on that she said was respect. You know, I've been an advocate now for 13 years. And I've been fighting for bringing visibility, awareness, and education to society on trans issues. And there's one thing that I learned over my 13 years of advocacy is that we cannot make anybody accept who we are. We cannot make anybody support who we are. But, excuse my word, we can damn well get respect. Respect is a very powerful word. Without respect, people lose lives.
They lose lives without respect.
So please, don't judge somebody else because you don't know their story. Everybody has a story.
Everyone.
And don't talk hate because it could be to somebody you love.
Someone you love.
Respect everybody as a human being. We all walk the same earth, breathe the same air. We all have red blood in our bodies. Thank you, Hajir.
Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Parker Webb.
Parker.
Parker Webb is the president and founding member of Lidditz Chooses Love, a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing support and resources to Lancaster County's transgender queer community. Recently transplanted after 17 years in Philadelphia, he was shocked at the lack of resources available and the isolation felt by so many here. Spurred to the action by the vandalism of progressive pride flag in his hometown, he and his amazing cohorts, Kate Parker and Rebecca Class Bernal, started Lidditz Chooses Love with the help of a fabulous crew of volunteers. Together they brought the town of Lidditz their first Pride event, June 26, 2021. Woo. With the first Coming Out Festival scheduled for October the 11th, 2021, 2 p.m. to 9 p.m. for those interested in attending regular social events like bi-weekly Queer Hike and his dedication to bringing more trans and queer specific services and resources to his community. Expect to see a lot more from this hardworking community member and his many supporters, and also Lidditz Chooses Love. Parker.
Thank you. Grateful for the opportunity to speak with you all today. As a trans man growing up in the 80s and 90s, I never even heard the word transgender. I didn't have any words for who I was or how I felt, but I was always incredibly genderqueer. When I was 11, my family moved from Jersey to Illinois, and any amount of acceptance I had from the peers and adults in my life disappeared. On the first day of school, the kids called me Pat, referencing an old SNL skit where the whole joke is that you cannot ascertain the gender of the main character. The adults always seemed to be mad at me for some reason unknown to me. I figured out later that my existence as an androgynous person challenged societal concepts of gender, and most authority figures are not into that. The isolation that followed those and lasted years really stuck with me. So now it amazes me the amount of information available to everyone about the transgender community. You can go to the Trevor Project website for more details on the numerous studies, but one finding I find particularly enlightening is this. LGBTQ+ youth in affirming schools have nearly 40% lower odds of attempting suicide compared to LGBTQ+ youth in non-affirming schools. When people simply say LGBTQ+ youth are at an increased risk of suicide, they're only pointing out a small portion of the fact. Those people fail all of us because the statement and fact is incomplete and therefore misleading. What they mean to say is LGBTQ+ youth are at an increased risk of suicide because of the violence, discrimination, and societal rejection they receive. Everyone needs to recognize the data surrounding suicide is representative of the behavior, views, and treatment of the cisgender heteronormative community towards LGBTQ+ people. This is why queer visibility, queer representation, and queer history matter. Our youth need to be able to see themselves as adults. If LGBTQ+ youth see examples of queer adults, they can see themselves as adults because they see a place for themselves in society, in their community, and in their families. Again, referring to the Trevor Project studies, only 28% of middle and high school LGBTQ+ students reported that they have ever learned about LGBTQ+ people or issues in their classes at school. Among students who have learned that LGBTQ+ people or about LGBTQ+ people or issues, most heard about them in health class or history class. But ultimately, we must address our societal views and treatment of LGBTQ+ people so we don't need extra help to live happy, healthy, and successful lives. All youth need the same thing: love, support, belonging in all environments, including school, home, and community. Until then, you will continue to find support within our community. Represented here today is a small portion of a dedicated community who are here to support you. Seek out local queer resources and don't be afraid to ask for help.
Thank you so much, Parker. Our next speaker is Christian Lidzitsky. Probably said that wrong. Christian is a queer activist from Susquehanna County, speaking today on behalf of mental health professionals and peer mentors from the Honesdale LGBTQ+ support group. Christian?
Now I feel like I should have sent you a longer introduction. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for being here, and thank you, Janelle, for organizing this. As Janelle said, my name's Christian, and I grew up in Susquehanna County, out in the country, outside a very small town of less than 10 houses. I literally grew up in a field. And when I realized that I was queer as a teenager, the emotion I remember most strongly from that day was a feeling of being completely alone. It wasn't until I got to college that I was finally able to meet and be mentored by other queer people who are living healthy, happy adult lives. I was really lucky that I was able to find that community and to find that support, but not everybody in our community is that lucky. And we lose far too many queer youth before they get the chance to spread their wings and carve out a space where they can be safe, respected, and openly who they are. Other people have already mentioned some of these, but I'm going to offer some pretty grim statistics, not to discourage, but to help anybody who's watching who might not realize just how difficult it is for queer youth to survive life. Queer youth are almost 2 times more likely to be bullied in school or online than non-queer youth. Queer youth are more than twice as likely to become homeless than non-queer youth. And queer youth are 3 times more likely to attempt to end their lives than non-queer youth. It is extraordinarily hard for most queer kids to survive into adulthood. We have to fight every single day just to make it. But there's another statistic that is really encouraging and offers me so much hope for the future. When queer youth are able to grow up with an accepting adult in their life, they are 8 times less likely to attempt suicide or develop major depression or anxiety. There is a pathway into happy, healthy queer adulthood for these young queer people, and it involves support and acceptance. That support and acceptance is the perspective from which I'm speaking today. As a peer mentor at a queer mental health support group, I've seen firsthand the transformation of queer kids from severely depressed and bullied into vibrant, flourishing, happy individuals. And the catalyst for that incredible transformation can be as simple as one person or one group of people who accept them exactly as they are. Mental and emotional support are critical to the survival and the success of our queer youth. So as I wrap up, I would like to take this time to call on the state government of Pennsylvania to immediately implement 2 policies that will save queer kids' lives. First, I call on the legislature to pass House Bill 1825 or similar legislation to ensure that queer students have access to counseling services in every single school in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I further call on the legislature to amend and improve House Bill 1825 to require that school counselors be trained to handle the unique mental health struggles that queer students face on a daily basis. And second, I call on the Pennsylvania Department of Health to immediately create and publicize a searchable database of queer-friendly mental health professionals so that queer kids and their families can quickly and easily find the mental health support that they need. Young queer people need us to stand up for them, and it is long overdue for the Pennsylvania State Legislature to take concrete actions so that our queer youth can thrive in our Commonwealth. Finally, to any queer youth who are watching this rally, especially any trans youth, I know that you might feel really alone. I am not the T in LGBT, but from secondhand experiences, I know that trans people face the most discrimination out of our entire community. But as much as you might feel alone right now, I want you to know that you are an incredibly valuable human being. And know that there is a team of queer people and allies out here today on the steps of the Capitol and throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania who are fighting every single day to make sure that you have the opportunity to live as your true self. We will not stop until queer people are safe, respected, and able to live openly and honestly as our true selves in every corner of this state. Queer lives matter. Trans lives matter.
Thank you so much, Christian. And Christian said it very well. Queer lives matter, trans lives matter. And let's let Harrisburg and the municipalities in the surrounding areas hear this. Queer lives matter, trans lives matter. Yell it.
Queer lives matter, trans lives matter.
Again.
Queer lives matter, trans lives matter.
Thank you. That concludes our speakers for today. I want you to give everybody give them a good hand. We had some amazing people. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all your support. And I want to thank everybody in attendance for your support. But there's one thing I want to say. The Pennsylvania Coalition for Trans Youth, this is our first event since we were created. I promise you, in the every days ahead, in the months ahead, in the years ahead, until we get equality, the PA Coalition for Trans Youth will continue to have events across Pennsylvania. We are reaching advocates, we are reaching legislators, we are reaching candidates, we are reaching municipality leaders, mayors, council people. We're going to have events in municipalities, in cities, towns throughout Pennsylvania. We are not stopping. We want to show the United States that Pennsylvania is #1 for equality. Whether it gets passed in government or not, we're still pushing for equality, and we all will be equal. Like I said earlier, we will win. My closing remarks for today. Pennsylvanians don't want to be drawn into cultural wars. This is what's happening today. With COVID-19 ravaging our communities and our economy, so many families facing uncertainty, unemployment, struggle. We wanted to say to PA legislators, do your job to get us back on track instead of trying to win political points by attacking trans kids. I'm going to say that again. Legislators in Pennsylvania, do your job to get us back on track instead of trying to win political points by attacking trans kids of Pennsylvania. From all of us at the PA Coalition for Trans Youth and TAKE, this rally is the first of many, as I said. That will continue to build momentum and share a message of acceptance, equality across the state in the coming months. We also want to thank all of you who attended and all those that viewed the rally on live stream for all your support, kindness, and love for all our trans kids and our families during these rough times of hate, bigotry, and discrimination. And as we've said many times throughout the rally, please remember, trans rights are human rights, period. We will not be silent. We will not be silent.
We will not be silent. We will not be silent. We will not be silent. We will not be silent. We will not be silent.
Education is not discrimination.
Education is not discrimination.
Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. Please, we circulated some sign-up cards. If you would please fill them out for us. That way we will be able to contact you in future events, right? Also, if there's any youth here that would like to make a statement to me, that we could put on our report out to society to show that some of your concerns, some of your ideas, some of your thoughts, what we can do to make your life better. Thank you again. You've all been awesome. I want to thank all the media that was here for covering the event. Thank you so much. And I want to thank the Pennsylvania State Capitol for letting us use their facility.
So that kind of wraps it up for today. For everyone that tuned in, I just want to say thank you. I hope that you learned something today. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel and share this stream. We really appreciate it. Have a good one.
Leon. Blah.